Okay, the title of my talk is Application of Vedic Maths Sutras to Strategies in Chess. I have earlier presented a webinar in the knowledge series organized by the IAVM, and now I'm presenting the paper here. The overview of this presentation is as follows. We'll be giving a brief introduction followed by basics of chess being covered. Then we will also cover basic aspects of Vedic maths, how we map the Vedic sutras to chess. That is covered next. And various applications. We'll be giving examples and illustrating how the powerful Vedic sutras are applicable in chess and how it can be used for winning strategies. Finally, we'll be summarizing and concluding, followed by discussions. Let me cover some aspects of chess for some of the participants who may be new to chess. Some of you are aware of this chess as it is very, very popular now. It is intellectual game and it involves thinking skills. The chess board consists of 8 by 8 square shown here, which is 64 squares here. And there are 16 pieces for each player. Like one color is given to one player, like usually white. Other player plays with the black. And the pieces here are the soldiers. They are also called as pawns. That is a basic pawn here. Then we have knight. Then we have the bishop. Then we have the rook, queen, and the king. So the placement of these pieces in the beginning is fixed according to the rules of the chess. And bishop is placed here, queen is placed here, king is placed here, and all these things. And the opponent places their pieces similarly here. And we use something called as a chess clock, which is shown here, to control the timing. How much time is allocated to each player to complete the moves is indicated by this clock. And after each move, the player is supposed to press this switch so that the clock of the other opponent starts. So when the opponent presses their switch, the clock of this particular player will start. So this is a chess clock, which is a useful appliance, especially nowadays. Most of the chess games are time controlled. So the chess clock is used in almost all the games. So let us cover some aspects of the Vedic math. I think in this conference, we have been discussing extensively various Vedic math techniques. It is derived from ancient Indian text and is celebrated for concise and elegant sutras, which are aphorisms that simplify complex mathematical operations. As you are aware, some of the persons who are well-versed in Vedic maths can do computations of squaring, multiplying, cube rooting, cubing very easily without the use of calculators. These sutras emphasize clarity, efficiency, and adaptability. These qualities, in fact, resonate deeply with the principles of successful chess play. Vedic math has been utilized for making fast mental calculations and also for high-speed computations. So given that nowadays the clock is introduced in the chess, the computations have to be speeded up. And so by drawing parallels between the sutras of Vedic maths and intricacies of chess, so in this presentation, we introduce a new framework which uses Vedic sutras aimed at enhancing strategic understanding and decision-making in chess. So Vedic math, here I have briefly covered some of the important aspects. The system offers lightning-fast calculation methods. In fact, some of the presentations earlier, it was illustrated with examples. It is based on only few short rules, 16 sutras and 13 sub-sutras. It is known for speed, flexibility, creativity, and specialization. In fact, we had one paper where they discussed about how to use the Vedic Maths for VLSI. And it is enjoyable aspect, which makes it more attractive for students and professionals. So I've listed here some of the Vedic sutras which we'll be using today. So let us now start using the Vedic Math sutras for the chess. So the first one is Ekadikena Purvena. So this is interpreted as by one more than previous one. This sutra is used for developing sequences by building incrementally in Vedic math. In chess, we can apply as follows. We'll use it for building incremental advantage. That is, gradually improve your position with small consistent steps, such as developing pieces, controlling the center, or advancing pawns strategically. So, for example, when you begin the game, rather than moving pawns in the flanks, you move the pawn in the center. So this pawn is now in a good position. It has opened up some space for movement of these other pieces like bishop and queen. And also this pawn is now controlling this center square. Nikilam Navatascharam Dashataha. This is the Vedic Math Sutra, which is interpreted as all from 9 and the last from 10. This sutra is useful in math as it simplifies subtraction by complementing numbers. This is also shortly called as Nikilam Sutra. So in the chess application, we use it for complementary move. So we need to exploit opponent's weaknesses, such as missing pieces, unguarded pawns, open files, by identifying complementary moves during the game, and also to strengthen the position and counter threats. So examples are complementary moves at various phases of the game to improve positional advantage, strengthen defense, and counter the opponent moves. So one of the example is shown in the board here. So when the white moved the piece, this pawn, to control the center square and also to get some positional advantage, the black complemented it. That is, the pawn was moved to the center so that it controls this square, and it is in a good position, and it is able to allow the movement of other pieces. Urdhva Tiryabhyam. So that is vertically and crosswise. This month Vedic Sutra is useful for general multiplication technique that is using vertical and crosswise operations. In chess, we can use it for multi-directional play. So the attack is mounted from multiple angles simultaneously. So that is combined vertical attacks, that is rooks and queens, with diagonal pressure, that is using the bishops. So bishops can control the diagonal squares, as you are aware, according to the rules of the chess, and the rooks can control the rows and columns in which they are present. So this is used here in this board. What is happening is this bishop is supporting this rook, and this is delivering a check. And also what we see is that the squares here are controlled, so king cannot escape here, and there is a checkmate happening here. So next sutra is Paravartya Yojayat, transpose and apply. This is a transposition technique used for solving equations. So in chess, transform the defense into offense. That is, many times we are in a defensive position, and we can, by moving intelligently, some pieces can attain an offensive position. Reposition defensive pieces to simultaneously create threats. So example is given here. So for example, use a retreating knight to attack critical squares while defending others. So for example, here is the position I've shown you. And what has happened is that the bishop is come out, the white bishop has come out here. The knight has been moved here. And you can see the black knight is also coming out, and this black knight also has come out. But there is a vulnerable pawn here, which is attacked by the bishop and this knight. Okay, so the knight was earlier here and we moved it here so that it attacks this pawn. What is happening is there are two pieces attacking simultaneously this pawn. Only king is supporting this pawn. So as a result of which this pawn is vulnerable now. This may be taken in case it is not sufficiently protected. So also what we can observe is that while this knight is attacking, it is also doing some defensive work. That is, it is protecting this pawn. It is supporting this pawn. So this knight cannot directly take this pawn. Okay. So next is Shunyam Samuchaye. That is, if the sum is the same, that sum is 0. This sutra is in Vedic Maths, simplifies equations by cancelling out identical terms. In chess, we use it for strategic piece exchanges. So in chess, this is a very basic rule that you exchange pieces of equal value rather than giving a higher value piece for a lower value piece and resulting in weaknesses. So, for example, I have shown you the various pieces here. That is pawn, knight, bishop, then rook, then the queen. So if you look at these pieces, the values we can assign, supposing if we assign a value of 1 to the pawn, then we see that knight is more powerful, so it is given a value of 3. So you cannot exchange a pawn and a knight. So one has to be careful unless there is a very good or a very big advantage in position. One should not exchange a knight with a pawn. So bishop is slightly more powerful than the pawn. That is, it is given a value of 3. And knight and bishop are almost equal value. Sometimes the bishop is more valuable depending on the position there. So then we have rook. Rook is supposed to be more powerful than the knight and the bishop, and it is valued at 5 here. So one should not exchange a rook with a bishop. Rather, rook with a rook is okay. Then we have queen here. Queen is much more valuable because it can move in all directions and it can cover a significant portion of the board easily. So its value is higher, 9. So unless there is a concept called sacrifice, one should not exchange the pieces of the different values. Okay. So next sutra we cover is the Anurupyena, that is proportionately. So this sutra is useful for solving problems by maintaining proportionality. So in chess, we can see it as balance play, that is respond proportionately to threats. Counterattack on the opposite flank if the opponent overextends. So supposing if the opponent attacks on the king side, seize the initiative on the queen side. That is, you are in a better position there to sort of balance the play that way. So one example is shown here. Here the king is in this part of the board. Like if you consider the board here that where the pieces are located, if you see the white king, this is called as the king side. And this is the king side of the black because king is posted here. After many moves in the board, this is the position which has resulted. And now there was a rook here which was moved here. You can see that. You may wonder, okay, why now why we are giving this rook here? Because bishop can easily take it. Okay, so but there is a advantage here, that is queen is now in a very good position supporting this rook, and if the bishop takes this rook, then the queen can capture it and also deliver a check, and the further developments can happen, as a result of which the white is in a very big white is gaining a big advantage to win the game. So next sutra is Sankalana Vyavakalana Bhyam, by addition and subtraction. So this sutra is helpful to solve equations using addition or subtraction in Vedic math, in chess. It is useful for net gain evaluation. So that is, weigh the benefits and drawbacks of each move. So supposing when you're making a move, it can result in weakness or it can strengthen your position. One need to weigh all this and consider the pros and cons in making a move. So that is, we need to gain material advantage, space advantage, or initiative, and ensure that we have minimum losses. Okay, example is here, sacrifice a pawn to open a file. Sacrifice is one of the powerful concepts in chess, where a particular pawn or a piece is offered in exchange for better positional advantage. So for example, here, in this position, this looks like a beginning of the game, and here this pawn has been pushed here. Okay, so what is happening is that this pawn can be easily captured, and you may wonder why we are exchanging this pawn. The idea is that moving this pawn is opening up this particular flank for the bishop, and it is making it movements easier, and also it is giving some initiative to the white pieces. So next is Purana Paranabhyam. That is a sutra which means by completion or non-completion. A technique for solving by rounding off numbers to the nearest base in Vedic maths. In chess, we look at it from the application as complete development. So ensure all the pieces are active and harmonized before launching an attack. So that is, see, rather than premature attacks without proper development can hamper the game. So here we advise is that we develop all the pieces very well and get an initiative. That is, in this case, you can see that this knight has come out, this knight has come out, this bishop is also coming forward, this bishop is white bishop and black bishop have come out very well. The queen is also there, and there is a castling. I think you may already know the concept of castling in chess. Castling provides fortress for the king so that it can defend very well against any kind of attacks. And these two rooks are coordinated very well. See, whereas in the case of black pieces, it has not been developed very well, as you can see. This bishop is behind this knight, and this pawn is obstructing the movement of this bishop. King is not castled, and this bishop is also hanging here. And this queen is obstructing the movement of this piece. This knight is also behind. These pawns are also in the initial stages of development. So we can see that white has done very good work by developing all the pieces, and going forward, it can launch an attack successfully, while black has to defend and protect itself. So the next sutra is Chalana Kalana Bhyam. Differential calculus is the application of this particular sutra. Chalana means moving or shaking. Kalana means calculating or affecting. This is a very beautiful Vedic Math sutra. And here in chess, we are using it to compare alternatives, compare possible moves based on their impact. So while in chess, it is encouraged for the player to think multiple alternatives before committing to one of the moves. This gives insight into how the mind works and how we can calculate the moves. That is, when you make a pawn move or a piece move, it may affect other pieces. This is the sutra which sort of gives an insight. So we need to calculate movements or okay, and there is a relativity happening here. That is, one piece is relatively placed to other pieces, and it needs to be considered in calculations. So example is shown here. For example, in this case, the black king is here, white king is here, and this bishop is sitting here, white bishop is sitting in the black diagonal, and there is a rook here. This pawn was here. See, originally this pawn was here, and it was moved to this position. So as a result of which, what we have here is the bishop delivering a check to the king. It's called as discovered check. That is, this movement of this pawn has resulted in this bishop opening up this flank and attacking the king, that is delivering a check. And also, meanwhile, while the king is trying to escape, okay, this pawn is now threatening to take the rook, capture the rook. Okay, so this is a very interesting move. What we see is that movement of this pawn is affecting the game in many ways, and it is giving a very important advantage to the white pieces. So the next sutra is Vyasti Samastihi, whole and parts. This sutra combines individual parts to create unified solution. Then here we have chess application in piece coordination. So the coordination of pieces for a unified attack and for defense also. So one is that each piece should somehow contribute to effectively to the plan. Rather, we cannot ignore the value of some of the pieces and keep them idle. Rather, we need to sort of utilize them very well with resourcefulness. This sutra helps us in that aspect. Combine the efforts of a rook and queen to create mating threads is the example here. For example, what we have here is that white king is here, then the rook is here, but this rook is pinned because the black queen has come here. See, now this rook cannot be moved at all because if we move it, it will result in check. So this is called as a pin. Then the white had an initiative. The queen was sitting here, but queen was moved here with the support of this particular rook, and it is now delivering a check to the black king. So you can see that even though this rook is stuck here with the pin, it is able to help and support this queen to move here nearer to the black king and deliver the check and take an initiative there. So next sutra is Sopantyam Yam Tyam. Ultimate and twice the penultimate. So simplifies large calculations using penultimate values. So in the Vedic math, this is the application. In chess, plan for the endgame and focus on critical moves that set up endgame advantages, such as creating pass pawns or activating your king. So example I have shown you here. Sorry about the alarm clock, and I think 20 minutes I've already spent on my presentation. Another few slides are remaining. I'll be trying to complete it. But here is the example for this sutra, that is the black king is posted here, the white king is here, then we have this rook here, the white rook. So what is happening here is that if we are able to somehow bring the pawn to the sixth rank, okay, usually in many of the games, this is called as an end game because very few pieces are remaining and only pawn is an advantage for the white. If you consider black and white pieces, you can see that the white is ahead with one pawn, but it has to utilize this. As you know, the pawns can be promoted and they become more powerful by taking various other forms. That is, it can become queen or knight or rook. Okay, so in that regard, we need to promote this pawn and take an initiative to create an advantage, that material advantage. This sutra is Gunita Samuchaha, the product of the sum. So this sutra relates factors and their sum for efficient multiplication in Vedic math. In chess, multiply threads, that is, create multiple simultaneous threads. That is, you can have forks, pins, skewers. The more threads, the harder it is for your opponent to defend. So what is happening is the game becomes more and more complicated, and there are more and more traps and forks and pins, and that creates very difficult situation for the opponent to compute the correct moves. And in case they make an error, you can take an initiative to win the game. So use a knight to fork and attack two pieces simultaneously. As you know, the knight is very powerful. It can attack two pieces simultaneously. That is called as a fork. And in this case, I am illustrating with the queen. So in this case, the queen was here in this is a game which is happening in the middle game. It's called as middle game. So the chess game can go from various stages. That is, it can be in the starting, that is, okay. Then it can be in the middle game and it is in the end game. So that is, so usually some pieces have been developed in the middle game, and towards the end game, most of the pieces are exchanged and there are very few pieces are remaining. So here what is happening is this queen is now threatening to capture this pawn, attacking this pawn in front of the this king, and also trying to capture this particular knight. So this is making a double attack. So if one tries to escape from one attack, the other one may fall. That is the idea here. So with the help of this bishop, so you can see that this particular column, it is attacking this pawn here in front of the king. And if this move is ignored, and if not proper action is taken or defensive mechanisms are implemented, then this may result immediately in the failure and checkmate of the black king. So in case the black king tries to escape by providing reinforcement, this knight may be falling because now what is happening is there is no support for this knight. So the sacrifice in chess is one interesting concept I have told you, like exchanging a higher value piece for a lower value piece, or giving a piece, okay, to build an advantage. So the pawn sacrifice is one of the interesting concept. It has been made as a movie, which is very popular now. And there are many books in this regard. So in Vedas also, in Vedic maths, especially, there is some concepts of sacrifice. So then we have the Vedic intuition in chess, that is the use of intuition. Intuition is the ability to acquire knowledge without recourse to conscious reasoning or needing an explanation. So intuition is used by some of the very experienced chess players who can recognize patterns and without spending further evaluations, they are able to find the right moves. One example is Magnus Carlsen, who has stated that he finds the moves by looking at the boards, but he still does some cross-checking about the validity of the move. So the highlights of this particular presentation are listed here. That is Ekadikena Purvena, that is providing you incremental progress concept. That is, in the game, you build a small and steady advantages over time. Nikhilam Sutra, that is giving you concept of complementary moves, countering and attacking opponent vulnerabilities through complementary moves. Then Urdhva Tiryabhyam, that is it is elaborating on multi-directional play, coordinating pieces for multiple angle attacks. Then Paravartya Yojayet, that is transformative defense, turning defensive moves into counterattacks. And Anurupyena, that is a balanced play, responding proportionately to threats while maintaining harmony. So I've come to the slide on conclusions. That is, Vedic chess sutras combine ancient mathematical elegance with modern chess strategy, offering players a unique framework for mastering the game. By applying these sutras, players can simplify complex positions, enhance decision-making, and achieve harmony between tactical and positional plays. So whether in opening, middle game, or end game, these sutras serve as a timeless guide to victory. Featured research could explore how these sutras could be integrated into AI-based chess engines. Some of these Stockfish and other chess engines, which are open source, also can incorporate these sutras. So they can be incorporated in teaching methodologies, potentially benefiting wider audience of players. So the intersection of Vedic maths and chess offers promising avenues for further exploration, bridging the gap between ancient wisdom and modern innovation. So we have here the example of World Chess Championship, where the clock played a very important role in this game. So Vedic chess sutras are more applicable to personal growth and philosophical understanding of the game, as chess is a highly intellectual game, offering players a framework to guide their thinking rather than specific tactical solutions. Their application is particularly valuable in long-term development, helping players evolve their strategic mindset and decision-making over time, rather than focusing on quick wins or tactical bursts. So chess is a game of patience, and in that regard, it builds a character. So with respect to references for this particular presentation, I have listed here that preprint of my paper is published on the preprint server, and one can view that. Then a YouTube video has been created by IAVM, and it has been posted, and based on the knowledge series presentation. Some introduction to Vedic math is available on the website of IAVM, and a chess introduction, supposing some of the participants are beginners, then they can refer to this particular website, and many other websites are available to teach chess. And I also published a book on Vedic computing workbook, and this is available on the Amazon. Please look at it.